So the first place where AI tools can help you is in literature search and review. When we talk literature, you have a lot of different sources of literature, right? And all these literature, most of them, so the primary sources and secondary sources of literature, they get used as references in most of your papers. Say, for instance, you're writing a grant, you're writing a manuscript, there is something called this reference list. And when I say that I have written a paper, my paper has 50 references, the way we visualize these papers is as a list. Okay, so I have referred to 50 papers, first paper, second paper, third paper, and so on. We tend to look at them as independent units or as silos. But in reality, they are not silos. They are related to each other through the references. So when one paper has a particular reference, these two papers are already linked to each other. When similarly a paper has 50 references, all these 50 references have a direct connection to this core paper that we are talking about. And this process gives us an opportunity to quickly identify papers linked to a certain paper. Say, for instance, on this slide, the central paper, the one published in 2017, is of great interest to me. And this paper already has around 50 references, let us assume, which means this 2017 paper is already linked to 50 other papers that were published before it. How do I find those 50 papers? Just by looking at the reference list, Googling or using Google Scholar to pick up on all those papers will give me 50 papers that were published and that were linked to this particular paper. And considering that this paper was published somewhere 5 years ago, in addition to the older papers, there are also a lot of new papers now that are linked to my paper through citations. So the referencing and citations is a way through which these papers are linked to each other. These together form a map, and the process of using citations to figure out or to collect literature is known as citation mining or snowballing, and there's backward citation mining and forward citation mining. And there are AI tools now which can capitalize on this process of citation linkages to create what are known as literature maps. Literature maps are basically your literature collections visualized as maps, clearly showing you which paper falls where and how they are linked to each other. Yeah. So this is my custom search where I have tried to identify papers on intermittent fasting and liver. Now, when you see on the screen in the right bottom, you see that one of the references are in blue. So that was the paper. All I have to do is go to the tool, pick out one paper. I can start searching with keywords. And once the keywords pull up certain number of papers, I can pick out one paper as that of my interest. And that paper has been used to create a map of literature linked to the paper. So the blue leaf you see on the right bottom is the paper of my choice. And there are 20 backward citations that have been pulled up by LitMaps. So why are citations only in one direction? What happened to my forward citations? There are not yet any forward citations because this is a pretty new paper which was published in 2023. And also now, say, for instance, I'm interested in knowing more about one of these circles. So each of these gray circles you see on the screen is a paper. And say now I'm interested in a paper called Patterson 2007. All I have to do is just click on that circle called Patterson 2017, and the left panel opens up with the abstract of the paper and the details. So the DOI is provided. You can use the DOI to get the full paper, go to the journal page. Also, the title of the paper, you see the metabolic effects of intermittent fasting in itself is a hyperlink. Just click on the title, you'll go to the journal page with the full paper. So LitMaps enables me to quickly search for related papers. And at the first round, I have 20 papers. Second round, add 20 more. Third round, add 20 more. Keep adding, and within half a day, you will have hundreds of papers, not random papers just based on keywords, but papers that are directly linked to your paper through semantic searches, through citation mining search. And Litmaps is not the only tool that can do this. There is this another tool called Connected Papers, again, which you could try. And Insightful, again, is a good literature mapping tool. But in addition to being a literature mapping tool, it also offers the possibility of providing a lot many insights about a paper. Say, for instance, which authors published the most on this topic? Which institution has the highest number of papers on this topic? And you can also kindly you can also try and tweak these this particular tool and the data it provides to figure out which funding agencies fund most of the research in this particular area, in the area that you are interested in. So this is a quick way to have maps, collect your literature, and also get the necessary insights. So Research Rabbit again is a great tool for creating literature maps and for sourcing your literature. So when we conventionally search for literature, the most important thing is to come up with the right keywords, because each word could have many different meanings. For instance, what is the first thing that comes to your mind when I say apple? For me, first imagination is for a tall glass of apple juice. But if some of you are gadget fans, or if you're fans of Steve Jobs, then the first image that comes to your mind maybe is that of Steve Jobs or that of your Apple products. So a word as simple as apple could mean so many different things. That's why creating the right keywords and key strings was important. But it's a boring job, it's a tedious job sometimes. What if there was a tool where you can just input a paragraph? You're reading a paper, you find that one of the paragraphs is very relevant for your research, just copy paste the paragraph and the tool picks out all the relevant literature and brings it back to you. We'll be more than willing to start installing and using those tools. The tool we are looking at is called Sourcely. So at Sourcely, all you have to do is just copy paste paragraphs. And the free version of the tool allows you to use up to 300 characters. If you go for the pro version, it's much more than that. Just copy paste it into your search bar and give find sources. And you see that the tool pulls up all your relevant literature. You can keep adding papers. Maybe initially it gives you 10 papers. You ask for the next 10, and so on. So the next few tools that I'm going to talk about, next 2 or 3 tools at least, are tools that are touted as academic alternatives to ChatGPT, and they are also great alternatives to Google Scholar or to Google, for instance, where you can directly ask questions to the tool. Unlike ChatGPT, which tends to give faulty information, and also ChatGPT does not always include the accurate references, these tools like Consensus give you answers. They also give you the references from which the answer was summarized so that you can quickly verify if the information is right or not. The top left summary you see is the answer to my question. What was my question? Is intermittent fasting good for the liver? So intermittent fasting is this new diet fad, I would say, after keto diet, after your high fat, low carb diet. Intermittent fasting is the diet that is being talked about a lot these days. And say, for instance, I am interested in how IF or intermittent fasting works on the liver. So that was my question to Consensus. Consensus gives me an answer which tells me that, okay, IF is something good for the liver, it could work. And on the right side, you see those green, yellow lines. That is known as the consensus meter. That meter tells me how many of the papers say yes to my question. So this happens only when you ask an yes or no question. And 71% of the papers say yes, which is a pretty good number. And that kind of gives me hope to pursue this path further. The next tool you can use is Semantic Scholar. So unlike Google Scholar, which focuses on very few keywords, Semantic Scholar is much more exhaustive in its usage of semantics for identifying your related literature. Apart from that, the interface and the usage is pretty much similar to Google Scholar. So this is what your results look like. And the second tool is called Elicit. Elicit is something similar to Consensus. Here, when you ask a question, the tool does not give you only a standalone answer, but rather it dissects your reference papers into different columns. So it gives you a short one line abstract summary, but then it also uh, pulls up all the interventions into a separate column, the limitations of your paper into a separate column, the systems that were used into a separate column, and so on. And these separations basically help you to quickly identify the different components of a paper. Say, for instance, you are trying to design a system, and you want to see how the different papers have employed what different technologies to come up with the system. This information is in the materials and methods section. And if you ask the question to Elicit, it will tabulate all the methods from different papers into a single column on its result. You can quickly check on the different methodologies that have been employed by other authors and try and adapt them as required for your system. So this is what individual results look like. So you can also view them as individual paper results. Iris AI is another tool that you can use for this purpose. Unfortunately, Iris AI is not offering individual subscriptions at the moment. There is a wait list. You can register yourself there, and when individual subscriptions open, you will be able to use Iris AI. So, what is special about Iris is that uh, apart from what Consensus and Elicit offers, Iris also gives you the option to use a lot of different filtering mechanisms. You can filter your papers based on context. You can filter them based on certain types of data. You can also set up alerts to see when some of the related papers come out, so on and so forth. And the team is also a bit collaborative. If you have a specific requirement in mind, you can also write to them, and they try and incorporate these aspects into the tool. So Iris AI is something that we're all waiting for to come out. Reading scientific papers is not always easy because the content is difficult to a certain extent, because scientific papers are not written to educate the novices, but rather they are written to share information with the experts, which means you have to have some working knowledge on the subject before you can understand a scientific article in its entirety. And also, coming from a country where English is not the first language, the non English speaking community among us also find that the scientific language, the formal language, is a bit threatening and also a bit daunting to understand. This is where the next tool can help you. So, this tool is called Copilot. Copilot is a very favorite name among the AI circles. Microsoft has a Copilot that does a completely different functionality. Here, the Skyspace Copilot is something that can help you read papers. It is like your personal mentor who's going to sit with you as you try to navigate papers. Say you don't understand a particular paragraph, this tool can explain it to you in simple terms. You want to quickly summarize certain content, then this tool can also help you summarize. And because it sits within the tool called Skyspace, which is a literature finding tool also, right within the paragraph, you can also find relevant papers. So this is the literature search option of Skyspace. Here, this is the interface of Skyspace. I have already uploaded a PDF paper. And when I highlight a certain section of the paper, you see that there's a pop-up. And if you highlight sufficient quantum of sentences, the summarize option will also pop up. So you can summarize this section. You can ask the tool to explain the section. You can ask the tool to find papers related to this specific paragraph. Yeah. And if you just look a bit above, you see that there is a small column with the epsilon sign in purple, which says explain math and table. So apart from explaining text, this tool can also help you understand math and table in engineering systems and in other papers. And on the right panel, you see that there are certain standard questions that this tool has already answered. But if you have any more questions, there is a query box open at the right bottom. You can start typing in your questions at the right bottom panel, and the tool will answer these questions based on information present only with this paper, not from Google, not from Google Scholar, but within this particular paper, which is of great use when you are especially trying to figure out some things. You read a paper, after a few days, you come back, you do not remember where you read this particular information from. Quickly ask the question to the tool, and the tool will pull up the section which is relevant to your question. And reading as a habit has gone out of the windows, I would say. We have become a generation of people who are more interested in viewing things. So we love Instagram reels much more than LinkedIn posts, I would say. And that is also understandable considering that we have multitude of things to do. And if you're in a very crowded city, a small commute from your home to your office could take anywhere between 1.5 hours or so. So why not? We are already so used to listening to audiobooks. Why not we also listen to papers? But there is a catch. Unlike audiobooks, which were specifically built to be read, scientific papers are in the form of PDFs or in Microsoft Word. They were not built to be read, which means they don't have the components for reading. What if there are tools that can overcome this limitation and still read papers to you? Speechify is one of the tools. This was not built exclusively for academic papers, but still they could do a good job of reading your PDFs. If you have your emails that require to be read, you can finish off all that during your commute, and by the time you reach your office, you are all set and loaded to start the day. Then there is this tool called listening.io, which was built exclusively for reading papers. It comes as a mobile app. You can just install it on your phone. You can add it to your uh, auto connects when you're on your car, and you can start reading papers directly out of this tool as well. So next comes where a process where you have to start making notes out of these papers that you read. This is where the following tools can help you. Yeah, the first tool that can help you in summarizing articles is known as Paper Digest. And Paper Digest basically takes your article, a 4,000, 5,000 word article, makes it into a summary that can be read in under 3 minutes. But the catch is, for this tool to be able to summarize a paper, the paper has to be available as open access papers, or you can also download the tool and you can locally upload a PDF sourced from the author or from other institutional sources, and this tool works fine. And this tool is under maintenance, so there is not much additions happening at the moment. If you're looking at open access publishers, the tool is great. But if you want to have the tool work on papers from publishers like Elsevier, then it gets a bit tricky. So this is the interface where you give the input of the DOI or the link to the PDF version of the paper. This is how the summary looks. So it is much more than just the abstract of the paper. You could use this in two ways. So first is where you use this to determine if it is worth reading the entire paper. And the second is where you use this as a quick skeletal summary to start building on this idea as a part of your own introduction section or discussion sections. So another tool that can do this for you is called Scholarcy. Scholarcy is not free. It has a free 7-day trial, which requires credit card details. And after that, it is chargeable. One tangential use of Scholarcy is that if you see on the screen below those three dots, the red, yellow, green dots, you see something known as the summary flashcards. So you can use this option to create flashcards out of your documents, which means, say, for instance, you have published a paper. Now you want to go for a conference where you will be presenting this paper. The paper has to be converted into a PPT. A quick way to do this is to create summary flashcards and then download these summary flashcards in a PPT format. That will give you the skeleton slides or deck for your presentation, and then you can build on them. So this tool called Site can again help you with understanding your summaries, checking your papers, checking your references, and so on. And there are two parts to this process of note making. One is where the content is already available in the form of papers or other resources. You want to summarize them. And the second half is where you're trying to write your papers, which means you will be adding your own notes to the to your manuscript draft. This is where tools like Firefly and Notion can help you. Notion AI basically picks out all your notes. It organizes it into in very organized structures, and then you can ask questions about the content that is already on Notion, and you get to interact a lot with Notion. The tool called fireflies.ai is something that can sit within your Zoom meetings or within your on call meetings. It can transcribe your meetings, it can organize the meeting notes, and also it can quickly interact with you to, as in, you can interact with it to get the necessary information. These two are tools that can help you to prepare these notes through voice notes. So instead of you writing down the notes, instead of you typing out the notes, you can just speak the information into a tool, and this tool will organize your notes. Even if you have some errors in the way you have put across the message, this tool kind of refines it and brings it back to you into a much more pristine condition. The next tool, so this tool is called Speak Notes, and the next tool is called Audio Pen. Both of these pretty much work on very cluttered, fussy thoughts. They clean it up and they bring it back to you into a good form text in, and they do it pretty fast.